Welcome back. This is Good Morning Namibia. Now, life transitions such as starting a new job, becoming a parent, retiring, or moving to a new environment could very significantly affect physical and mental health. These changes may impact sleeping patterns, stress levels, eating habits, and even access to healthcare. Here to help us understand more about the impact on life transitions, Dr. Lachia Monyela, a psychiatrist. Good morning, doctor, and welcome to Good Morning Namibia.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
How are you doing, doctor?
I'm doing very good.
Very happy to hear that and very happy to have you this morning, doctor. Please speak to us about these changes that we mentioned, such as starting a new job, such as retiring, such as becoming a parent, such as perhaps moving to a new environment. What impact could those developments have on one's holistic well-being?
Okay, it's a very good question. When one has to transit from what you normally do to, for example, like being a parent, you know, there are a lot of things that one has to prepare because then it has a lot of changes on your body. For example, your body. The parent must be prepared to actually prepare themselves about knowing how the body changes are going to be. Yeah, and similarly also when a person is moving, also that changes because now you have to change your social environment and people that you communicate. So that has a big impact on your mental status and on your health. So you have to know what you are going to do about that.
Could we provide some particulars in terms of the exact impact of such transitions on both one's mental but also one's physical health?
Okay. Mental, when we are talking about mental, is like, for example, if you move or you have a baby, it's like you actually change environment, you know. So you have to have a routine of what you do on a daily basis. So, for example, if you're not moving out or you don't have a support, you can actually get into a depression, you know, and that depression is one thing that you have to prepare yourself. Should that happen, or how do you avoid having that?
Is the onset of the depression only the result of not having a support structure, or could it be linked to the size and the scope and the magnitude of the transition?
No, it has both, yeah? Because like if you're moving yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, if you haven't prepared yourself, then it actually leads to that. So you have to think of, if I'm transitioning, if I'm moving, for example, you need to know, okay, if I'm moving to another place or to another country or from this position to another one, you have to prepare yourself. Do I have a social support where I'm going? Did I do enough research, for example, to transition from point A to point B? If you didn't do all that, then emotionally and physically, obviously, it will have a lot of changes on that.
Are there some telltale early warning signs that one needs to be on the lookout for, that this transition, whether it's a new baby, a new house, a new job, a new place of residence, is impacting my well-being negatively? Which are those signs?
There is definitely those signs. For example, like you'll see that a person who normally goes out, now you find less time that you are actually socializing. You spend more time in the house. It means you are staying by yourself. You don't have anybody to talk to. And then you look at your sleeping pattern. It can be that you find yourself sleeping most of the time, or you don't sleep because, for example, if you have a child, you find that you have less time to sleep because of the pattern that the baby is having on you. Obviously, they wake up to feed, isn't it? And you are not used to that. Okay, and apart from that, you find yourself not eating at all on a regular time that you normally eat. Instead of having 3 meals, you'll find yourself, I'm probably just having 1 meal. And that obviously will have an impact on your body because you might lose weight or you might gain weight. And some people, or all of us, are not prepared to have those body changes without actually preparing for that. Yeah.
As a clinician, when would you be concerned Look, if one does have a baby and you need to wake up regularly for the child to feed, that is to be expected. But at what stage, as far as these telltale warning signs that you just shared with us, would you as a clinician be worried, and would it require intervention?
Okay, it actually needs interventions at a very early stage. For example, if a person has a child or a new baby, sometimes they look at the baby as if they don't see a human being. So, if you understand what I mean, it's like
I don't think I know what you mean. Yeah.
okay, like for example, a lot of people that are going into that mental state is that they don't see the child as a baby. It can be that they see it as something else inhuman. So you find that sometimes they don't feed the child. You find that they beat the child or they hit them against the wall. Then you know, okay, something is really happening to this person mentally. So obviously interventions are needed to be there. So most of the time we say that a person, when you are having all these changes, you need to look for help even before you move or before you have a child. So there's nothing wrong with going to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist when you are having all these transitions because it will help you prepare so that by the time this comes, you are emotionally, physically, and mentally prepared for that.
Are there categories of persons who are predisposed? Of course, as far as babies are concerned, we know that women fall pregnant and have the babies. So in that instance, postnatal depression is something that directly affects women. But if we're talking about categories of people affected by these transitions or going through them, which are the categories of persons who would be predisposed ordinarily?
Obviously, the female are the most important ones in that case because we know they will have postnatal natal depression. However, we forget about the partner because the partner also is not prepared, to know that, okay, if the baby comes, it means I'll spend less time with my lady. So there are certain needs, obviously, as a human being that you need, but those things cannot happen because this person is just having a baby. So obviously, a lot of time they spend is with a baby. So men will think, okay, I'm neglected. Children also in the house need to be prepared to tell them that, okay, if your brother or sister comes in, it means that mommy will have less time with you and that they don't feel that the baby is actually taking place or their place.
So what advice would you have for people expecting to undergo a transition? How does one best prepare yourself and your loved ones to navigate this period?
The most important thing is that you talk about it before the transition comes. For example, if you are moving from one country to another one or from one town to another one, it is best that we recommend that you do proper research about that country where you are going. You have to know what are the norms in that country. For example, look at the languages that they speak. Do I know it or do I need to learn before I go there? Also, when you are moving, the most important thing is go visit that town or country, get to know the surrounding and circumstances in there.
If you are able to.
If you're able to,
Yeah.
but if you're not able to, before you move, at least have somebody to talk to, or somebody who lives in that country. Google, and sometimes Google doesn't give you the exact things that happen in the country. So you actually want to talk to somebody who has been there so that you know, should I move, where do I start and what do I really need so that I adjust to that. If you're a working person, then you need to find out what are the possibility for me to get a job there. If you don't get that, that means definitely mentally you'll end up spending more time in the house. In a foreign country, you don't have friends, you don't have social support, so you are most prone to get, for example, depression or anxiety.
You're raising an important point. Another potential transition is to lose one's job. You need not relocate. You need not have a baby, but just to lose your job, which provided stability, which provided a source of income. What impact could that have on one's emotional and physical well-being?
Okay, it's a very good question and important question. One, if you're losing job, for example, without having prepared for that, then you have to now know, how am I going to adjust not having an income, not going to work? So you have to learn to say, okay, how does that affect me as a human being? Number one, you will not have financial income. So hopefully you will have to have insurances, yeah, or finance planning while you were working to have some savings. So now I'm surviving from that. Now,
What if you don't have that? Because some could find them in a very precarious position, with no savings, with no pension fund, with no backup, with nowhere to go.
Actually, that is now the biggest problem. If you don't have any of that, obviously it will affect your mental state. Yeah, and your body actually will have a problem to adjust that, because you might not have enough to support or maintain yourself, yeah, while you are going through that state. So obviously you will end up having a mental problem. Then you will actually also isolate yourself from the family or from the society, and that you being alone will definitely have an impact. You might have depression, you might have anxiety. If you are prone to having like some of the mental disorders, obviously that will be a trigger.
I want us for a moment to have a look at the somatic impact, Doctor, psychosomatic. If we have regard to the fact that these mental health triggers could also translate and lead to physical ailments, is there a link between what I'm experiencing psychologically and how that plays out, how that manifests in the flesh?
There is a link, because like you will start thinking or you will start feeling that I am ill, But when you go to the doctors, they can do all kind of tests, but the test will be negative. So
The physical tests.
a physical test will be negative. They can do all type of tests, and then when there is nothing that is been found, then you start thinking that, could this be mental? Could this person be actually experiencing this, but there is no medical explanations. So that means from the doctors, then they need to go to a psychologist, and they will try to find out. And they might end up now from a psychologist to a psychiatrist.
Doctor, we might get told to exercise, to make more intentional nutritional choices, to wake up and make your bed. However, it's possible that you have no energy for any of that. Where does one start as we wrap up our conversation this morning?
If you, for example, you find yourself not wanting to wake up in the morning, that means obviously there are already problems, showing you that you are either getting into a depressive state or an anxiety state. So in all of these cases, what we are saying is try to maintain your routine. Try to have a specific time when you go to sleep, have a specific time when you wake up, even if you don't have a job. Do you understand? That keeps you active, and that keeps your brain active. And you don't want just to be lying down and watching TV the whole time.
Or doom scrolling on your device.
Exactly. You can't do that. You have to say, okay, I'm going to do A, B, C. Okay, I'm going to jog. I'm going to join a gym. I will have time with my grandkids, especially if you have grandchildren. Then you have to be active. Then you also have to discuss and involve, your family members, so that they understand what you're going through and how you plan to go through that, because they will only help you how to transition from that point to the next one.
Thank you, Doctor. For someone tuned in at the moment who's lost some hope, what message do you have for them finally?
If a person has lost hope, it's to tell them that, that is not the end of the world. That's not the end of your life. There is something else that is opening for you. Instead of concentrating on the door that is closed, look forward, look ahead at that. What else can I do in life, and how can I do to reach there? And then importantly is to be open, and feel free to go see a psychologist. There's nothing wrong with a person having to go through a psychologist, because the psychologist will actually just help guide you on how to pass through that stage that you are going, and to be a better person and not get any other psychological or emotional illnesses which could be prevented.
Doctor, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your expertise. Thank you for holding space for us this morning.
Thank you, and I'm glad to have been around.